Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where you and I work together to squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Miriam and we're here for part 2 out of 14 as we travel through Harry Potter and the something Phoenix something.
But Adrian, last week you said that this would be a 13-part series.
That is very true, but today we are going over Chapter 4 and Chapter 4 alone, leaving Chapters 5 and 6 to be their own video, because I think that there is a lot of stuff that happens in this one chapter that is worth discussing, and possibly makes Harry Potter travel over into the realm of literature instead of a stupid kid's book. So, the recap of Chapter 4, what happens? We arrive at a mysterious house where we are reacquainted with Ron, Hermione, and the ever more suspicious Ginny. And we learn of Dumbledore's mysterious Order of the Phoenix. Also, Sirius shows up. And one thing I'm going to be adding to the weekly video in addition, because I hate that I compare J.K. Rowling's writing to Stephen King's writing so often. And I tried to quantify it, and I tried to figure out what it is. I tried to really delve into things a little deeper and figure out why I feel that way. And the only thing at this point that I can bring myself to imagine that it is because J.K. Rowling has this very tempered rhythm to her writing. It's word and word and word and word. Nothing's too long, nothing rolls too well, nothing's too short, which is, for example, when you read Hemingway, everything feels like you're getting jabbed. Pop, 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 right in the face. Sentence, 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 sentence. Here's my point, here's my point, here's my point. When you read Faulkner sort of lulls you to sleep with this very tempered language, and then all of a sudden you're reading a 4-page sentence that he's just piling on top of you as the reader, and he expects you to stay there with him as you go. And it can be very difficult, but he has lulled you to sleep, and he has lulled you into one rhythm, and then he pulls the carpet out from under you, and you're 4 pages later in the same sentence, and you'd never realized it. J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, they don't write in that manner. And, I figured if we're talking about cadence, what a better way to make a show of it than with some walking. So every week we're going to have a Christopher Walken quote from the chapters in order to just exemplify it. This comes from page 60. He rapped Harry hard over the head with his wand. Harry felt as though something hot was trickling down his back. This time he knew that the disillusionment charm must have lifted. And when you break up a very even cadence in the way that Walken talks, you're able to really see how even it is, right? There would be some sentences in Hemingway that when you break it up like that, that's all the words there were. It's going to sound natural. There's going to be snippets of things in Faulkner that when you break it up that way, it's going to sound natural because he writes with a roller coaster rhythm that gets you going. When you apply that type of reading to something so tempered as J.K. Rowling, as Stephen King, it doesn't come across that way. It sounds very Walken-ish. Now here was the very first thing that struck me from this chapter. It happens on page 59. What's the order of the... Harry began. Not here, boy, snarled Moody. Wait till we're inside. You can't say Order of the Phoenix. You can't say Voldemort. It is an interesting observation to note the importance that J.K. Rowling puts on language. After all, casting a spell is simply to make a word, to make symbolic that thing which we wish. To cast a spell, to spell a word, is to have a symbol which represents something in the idea realm. Something luminous, perhaps. And deeper than that, if I may channel some Jordan Peterson, it's like, it's right on the page. It's in the Bible. That was way more Irish than Canadian. I'll work on that. But it's in the Bible? Yeah. In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God. and the Word was God. Why are these things, words, language, so important to us? There is something quite fundamentally us about spoken words. There is something quite fundamentally our culture about our language. If you want to go meta about that, what do white people do? They go and they take other people's land. They go and they take other people's words, don't they? English is a language that is accruing words all the time. We just steal them. We mug other languages in a back alley and take the pretty ones. You know what I mean? But this idea of it being fundamentally us, language. Birds don't do it. Bees don't do it. Snakes don't do it, no matter what books you're reading. Language is something that we guard, and we guard it mightily. And in order to sort of make a point about that, I am stealing a quote, stealing words, from Carl Sagan's The Dragon of Eden. Now, I want you to note, we're 2 videos into this Harry Potter series. You've gotten a Stephen King reference. You're getting Carl Sagan and the Bible this week. Where else are you going on the internet to get all of these references into your Harry Potter? For this, we will turn to page 131 of our text. Why are there no non-human primates with an existing complex gestural language? One possible answer, it seems to me, is that humans have systematically exterminated those other primates who displayed signs of intelligence. This may have been particularly true of the non-human primates who lived in the savannas. The forests must have offered some protection to chimpanzees and gorillas from the depredations of man. We may have been the agent of natural selection in suppressing the intellectual competition. I think we may have pushed back the frontiers of intelligence and language ability among the non-human primates until their intelligence became just indiscernible. This is to say that in the process of evolution, while there were other humanoid primates evolving around us, there are signs that we cohabitated with some for short periods, and then we killed the hell out of them. There is evidence of this wherever the early signs of humans as we know us to be exist, that we were evolving around other primates. And then at some point we started killing them for some reason. And part of the theory is, once they start showing that they're smart enough to plot maybe, to communicate for sure, you don't want to have that around. Further, on this same point, in the Old English, spell meant to tell a story. So later, if spell meant simultaneously to tell a story and to make symbolic a word being able to, say, evoke emotion, we give that spell a lot of power. And a powerful contemporary example of this is triggered, right? Everyone, whether they want to admit it or not, has something that will trigger them. Something, and now that the word trigger is mainstream, everyone knows what that means. So if, for example, we were in an argument and I say, Christ, don't get triggered. What happens? What happens at that moment? You will become irrational, angry, irate, and you will counteract all of the things, the rational arguments that you had worked up yourself. You will do that yourself simply by being angry. Because mentioning the word trigger conjures those emotions of the thing which triggers you, subliminally. Simply mentioning the word trigger underrides everything which is currently happening. And aren't magicians also called conjurers? In that situation, what has happened is that I have used language to do what I want, which is to say that I have controlled your mind by making you angry so that I win an argument by casting a spell over you. A spell meaning using a word which represents a larger idea and a story behind it. By saying, don't get triggered, I trigger you into those emotions connected with the things which do harm to your argument. That is a lot of, that's classical magic. That's being a magician. That's mind control right there. We get on page 63 and 64. Another reason that this chapter is going to be a video of its own is I am using some extended quotes from the text. "He seemed to think it was best," said Hermione rather breathlessly. "Dumbledore, I mean." "Right," said Harry. He noticed that her hands, too, bore the marks of Hedwig's beak and found that he was not at all sorry. "I think he thought you were safest with the Muggles," Ron began. "Yeah?" said Harry, raising his eyebrows. "Have either of you been attacked by Dementors this summer?" "Well, no, but that's why he's had people from the Order of the Phoenix tailing you all the time." Harry felt a jolt of anger in his guts, and as though he had just missed a step going downstairs. So everyone had known that he was being followed except him. "Didn't work that well, did it?" said Harry, doing his utmost to keep his voice even. "Had to look after myself after all, didn't I?" "He was so angry," said Hermione in an almost awestruck voice. "Dumbledore, we saw him. We found him. When he found out that Mundungus had left before his shift had ended, he was scary." "Well, I'm glad he left," said Harry coldly. "If he hadn't, I wouldn't have done magic, and Dumbledore would have probably left me at Privet Drive all summer." Aren't you worried about the Ministry of Magic hearing?" said Hermione quietly. "No," Harry said defiantly. He walked away from them, looking around with Hedwig nestled contentedly on his shoulder. But this room was not likely to raise his spirits. What we have there, and perhaps I am mistaken, but this may be the first time in the series that we see outright contempt for authority from Harry Potter. Not simply questioning it, but contempt for the authority figures themselves. Contempt for their ideas, for their plotting, and an undermining of these things by thinking that he could have done better on his own and did in fact do better. Is this the jumping off point to a real hero's journey? Is this Luke contemplating a turn to the dark side? And on page 65, we've just heard about Dumbledore exploding. Is this dark magic at play? Because we have both Harry and Dumbledore exploding. We have tales of them blowing up at the same time. And also, I'm going to claim some authority here. And I'm going to go ahead and make this argument. And if you are easily angered, I suggest this is where you turn off this video. For 4 years, I pursued an English literature degree. And during those 4 years, oftentimes in classes, one of the prompts for papers to be written was, how poorly does this male author portray a female character? So for example, in one class, there were 20, 21-year-old kids writing how terribly Flaubert represented Madame Bovary, which is just a horrific thought in general, right? Anyway, so in that class, I wrote instead, and if you've followed the channel for any time, you've heard this story before. I wrote The Tale of Genji, a meandering tale of a philandering male. The Tale of Genji was written by a woman about a male protagonist. And I wrote about how poorly this female writer portrayed a male protagonist. So if these things are on the table and these questions are able to be discussed in the literary realm, I'm going to call J.K. Rowling out right now and say that she writes Harry Potter's arguing like a woman. Harry Potter argues like a woman. That is to say that there are fundamental differences between the ways that men and women argue, and I think that's from this stems many of the great fights between men and women, right? So men, when we get into an argument, when we get into a disagreement, men strive to be, you may not say that we attain this, but we strive to be rational creatures. So the beginning of an argument with a man normally stems from something he finds irrational, from something he does not understand. Where the hell are we? Where the hell are we going? What the hell are you doing? What the hell did you say? What the hell? This is a struggle to make ration out of something that someone does not understand. Women, from my own experience, not just my experience, you can go to any number of comedians, any number of movies, any number of literary examples. Women, when they start an argument, they do not start where we are. They go back to the root problem from whence this has come. So, when Harry Potter is angered and forced into his little fit of yelling, he goes back to the root problem that he has with Ron and Hermione. He goes all the way back to the beginning of the summer. He does not say where we are. Why aren't you telling me what's going on? Why aren't we doing this thing right now? He goes all the way back to the beginning of summer. And for this, I think that Harry Potter is written poorly by a female writer on a male protagonist. Through a male protagonist. I'm not sure if that's exactly how to say it or not. But we're going to move past that. Is Percy a dark wizard? This seems to be the inference that at least J.K. Rowling is trying to tempt you into. We'll have to see where that goes. But in that little bit about what Percy is doing, we have the Ministry trying to hush that Voldemort is back. And this sounds, I'm not sure how it is in other parts of the world, but in the United States, this type of argument, oh, no, everything's fine, shut up, sit down, do your work. In the United States, that is not necessarily an argument from the government. That sounds more like an argument from the financial departments, right? Oh no, everything's fine, debt isn't a problem, keep spending money, right? So it's strange for me to read it in that context, that it seems to be coming from the government type of, the magic government, whatever they're called. Harry Potter, we also understand in this little bit of text, is the butt of jokes and an attention-seeking git. Harry Potter Kardashian. This is an interesting turn in the text that I am happy with. I'm all right with that. And this, finally, we have a quote from 76. Harry saw the dark, greasy-haired head and the prominent nose of his least favorite teacher at Hogwarts, Professor Snape. At this point, I am utterly convinced that Professor Snape was written while J.K. Rowling was staring at pictures of Neil Gaiman. So, it really helps me out if you hit the like button on this, and remember that I am not taking part in the comments to these videos because I don't want to be exposed to any spoilers for this series. So if you have things to slug it out, find me on Twitter at AdrianAnyway or at StrippedCover, but please be mindful of spoilers. But down below, if you want to get in arguments with all other Potterheads about all sorts of Potterhead stuff that I am getting completely wrong, feel free to do so, and I hope to see you for the next installment of Harry Potter and the Order something Phoenix of the something something.